I want to welcome you and introduce you to the lead coordinator of Africa Climate Action Initiative. Sarah is a change agent and a social entrepreneur. She's passionate about championing for the rights of the less privileged through advocacy and community development. While living in Kenya, she graduated with a Bachelor's of Education from the University of Nairobi and worked in various national and international organizations in refugee camps and in the humanitarian field. Through these experiences, Sarah has witnessed firsthand loss of lives and livelihoods and forced migration due to climate change. This is what inspired her to start the Africa Climate Action Initiative.
As you've heard, Africa Climate Action Initiative is an initiative of CAP Network. We started Africa Climate Action Initiative simply because Africa is one of the countries that is only producing about 2 to 3% of the world carbon dioxide emission. Yet it is one of the continents that is greatly affected by climate change. We are saying that according to Global Harvest Initiative, that by 2050, Sub-Saharan Africa will only be able to fulfill 13% of its total food needs to the current population, meaning that 87% will not be addressed. The reason why we started Africa Climate Action Initiative is actually 5 main objectives, but one of the main objectives is to create awareness. To create awareness both in the developing countries and also in Africa. At the same time, we are creating a platform whereby organizations can actually come together, share lessons learned, and even above that, be able to access resources that are available in fighting against climate change. Our membership is drawn from 6 countries, as you can see, and so far we have 7 organizations. Today, I'm just going to talk about climate change in East Africa. We're saying that in Eastern Africa, the main economic activity is agriculture, while in Somalia, the main economic activity is livestock, then followed by tourism. So how has climate change affected the main economic activity in Eastern Africa? If you look at the slide, you can see that developed nation, China is producing 15.6 metric ton, while somebody in Kenya could be producing 0.3 metric ton. That means that that person, an average Canadian is actually producing 50 times more carbon dioxide emission than somebody who is based in Kenya. So I'm going to talk about the effects of climate change, and the effects of climate change is not just the tangible effect that we all know. We know that there's always flood, there's drought, and there's displacement, and there's food insecurity. So you can see, like right now, there are floods in Kenya. I'll give an example of Kenya, whereby last year alone, there was drought in the beginning of the year, and then floods in the middle of the year, and even now, right now, there are actually floods, and floods have affected nations. So climate change is not only affecting food security, it is also affecting wildlife. Last year it was reported in Zimbabwe that over 200 elephants died, yet that country is actually relying on food, on farming and even tourism. Other effects of climate change that we could be talking about is things like depression, anxiety, mental health. When a farmer keeps on planting their crops and their crops fail, how does that work to the farmer? They've already put a lot of agricultural input, a lot of resources in. What about the effects of climate change to family disintegration? And this really affects family, where marriages break, and also because of displacement. Also, we see that other cases, for example, of gender-based violence and domestic abuse happening because of climate change. These are some of the intangible effects that have not yet been measured, but they are coming up because of effects of climate change. What has East Africa done? We've said that we've come up with climate change action plan, whereby the government have implemented that. At the same time, the organizations, they're trying to mainstream the effects of climate change. But also now we have another person that has come that destabilized food security, and that is the current COVID situation. That now the countries that actually were recovering floods, they are now having to face the lockdown, which is already affecting COVID situation. That that case, we are saying that how has COVID situation or coronavirus, as many people would call it, how has it affected the effect of food security? And we are saying that it has affected livelihood, it has affected employment, it has affected even the food value chain in terms of accessing food from the farmer to the end user. So the whole value chain of between the farmer and the distributors has been affected by climate change and being compounded a lot by the COVID situation. These are some of the food security issues that we are going through because of COVID situation, whereby even the food hawkers are being whipped because they have to face a lockdown situation. I propose that let us mainstream climate change in all sustainable development goals. Because if climate change is only addressed as a standalone, it means then that the effects of the realization of SDGs that have already been realized will be negated, because climate change is affecting education, climate change is affecting health, it is affecting accessibility of clean energy. And you will see that in some of the clips that I'm going to show you, how climate change is actually even affecting all sustainability and even infrastructure. So you can see that in climate change, when you talk about climate change and migration, it has affected not only human beings, we're also talking about even wildlife. They are migrating. The original habitat that wildlife used to have, to live in, they're also moving because they're in search of food, they're in search of water. And therefore it means that there will be increase in wildlife and conflict. Also even the vectors, the disease causing insects, the vectors like malaria, where there was no malaria initially. Now we are finding that malaria is becoming rampant and even moving to other countries and other places where initially there was no incidences of malaria. And just this year alone, at the beginning of the year, we had locust invasion. As you can see, these are some of the pictorial slides that are just depicting what is currently going on. That is the livelihoods of people being affected. So again, what the SDG, Sustainable Development Goal, is talking about is in terms of provision of economic empowerment. You can see that is the shop on the left side that is greatly affected because of floods. And this is happening actually currently in real time in Kenya. Look at the sustainability of infrastructure because of climate change, because of floods, that even the road networks are being affected, houses, buildings. That is the reason why I'm saying that there is need to address climate change and to be mainstreamed in all levels of sustainable development goals. This is currently what is going on the left side, where again floods have greatly affected even food crop. That is what happened a couple of years ago during drought session, whereby many people actually lost their livestock. Again, as I mentioned, the climate change is also affecting access to clean water and sanitation. On the left, during drought, that is the same water well. People are not able to access. At the same time, they're able to, whenever there is flood, the water, they collect water that is dirty, that is already exposed to E. coli. Whenever there is migration, there's a lot of environmental degradation, whereby trees are cut down because people have to eat, they have to provide firewood, and they also have to put up temporary shelters. So this is what happened at the end in Zimbabwe, whereby there was human and wildlife conflict. And you can see on the left where an elephant tried to access a water well and it got stuck. Again, it causes conflict. And the other side is some of the wild animals that actually died. That is a pictorial example of a locust invasion that happened. And so therefore, as I mentioned earlier, that even locusts are migrating, human beings are migrating, wildlife are migrating. So we are saying that as individuals and as group, we need to address climate change because it will increase conflict. It will also increase conflict between human and wildlife. It also increases loss of livelihood and even diseases. And there are other intangible things that I mentioned about, for example, like human rights abuse. So we are calling upon you as Africa Climate Action Initiative that as individuals and even as organizations, let us increase awareness and in terms of both to individuals, let us change the way we do things. Let us change even the way we are producing things. And we also inviting you to come and partner with Africa Climate Action Initiative in terms of either volunteering and giving us your skills, or at the same time, you can join our website that will be indicated there and join a bikeathon event that we are doing fundraising, so that you can come and be part of the change that we want to see. All skills are invited in terms of volunteer, and also at the same time, we also need you to help fundraise. As Lynn also mentioned, there are people who are looking forward in terms of raising and even partnering with us. Thank you so much.